Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. One of the fights to look forward to this weekend is an intriguing matchup between Dave Allen and Lucas Browne. There's a lot on the line for both men in this fight that's at the O2 in London on a card which also features Derek Chisora and Senad Gashi. For Dave Allen, he wants to prove that he is a credible threat in the heavyweight division, that he can go somewhere in the division. For Lucas Browne, he wants to prove that he is still a relevant factor in the heavyweight division, not just some journeyman guy that is chasing paydays. He wants to prove that he is above that level and move on to some strong competitive fights in the future. So what I'll do in this video is go through some of the build-up, some thoughts on this fight in general, but first we'll start with the press conference and a couple of quotes and statements from both men.
Obviously the last time out in the O2 wasn't my day in any way whatsoever, so I'm looking to rectify that. I think over the last year, things that needed to be fixed in my career and home life, all that sort of stuff, have been fixed. I've got a new trainer. I've had 3 fights since then, and I'm just ready to go. So for me, I think, there's nothing bad to say about Dave Allen. He's a lovely guy. Handshakes, all that sort of stuff. But as soon as the bell goes, we're going to punch the shit out of each other. So we'll smile after it. My new trainer, Jay Gray, out of Onyx in Perth, we do it all in the one spot. So there's no more travelling across country, all that sort of stuff. We do everything in Perth. And it's just a happier environment as well. So I'm completely happy with where I'm at. I think I'm in the best condition so far, so I'm happy to see what happens on Saturday. Well, for me, I just want to stay in nice, good, competitive fights as well. Obviously, I want to make money and leave a legacy, but I want to be in good fights, and I think this has all the makings to be a great fight. So for me, I don't look past this in any way whatsoever. I want to concentrate on Saturday, put on a good performance, and then we'll talk about that afterwards.
And then Christmas Day, I got on the scales 20 stone. And I said, you know what, let's give it a go now. This is it. This is your last chance, You come into the ring out of shape again, you're finished for good. You come in the ring and lose again, it's a long way back. So we spoke, the Lucas Browne fight came up, and I'm headlining the O2 against a former holder of a WBA heavyweight title. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Tony Yoka fight was the turning point. I was ready to retire. It took me like 11 hours to get home from Paris the next day. There was a problem with the tunnel and whatever. I was standing next to a radiator on the train to Doncaster, and I just thought, you know what, I don't need this anymore. I don't need it. I was topless on the train, and I just sat there. Everyone was looking at me. I looked swollen. Everyone was just like, what is this man doing? I must have stunk as well. So anyway,
that was a low point.
Yeah, I was ready to retire. I was going to retire. I was going to fight Lee Carter in Sunderland, 4-rounder, win and be gone and find a job. Nick Webber knocked him out, and I thought, you know what, David, let's go. I boxed in Sunderland, beat him, and I thought I was some knockout puncher. So I thought, this Bracamonte fella, I'll chin him in around. Don't worry about it. Don't train, David. It's fine. You're a massive puncher now. And obviously, I got in an absolute war with him. Got home. I thought, another 2 or 3 fights like that, you're going to end up talking. No one's going to understand the words you're saying. I'm going to stick to the Darren game plan, for a little while. We'll see how it goes. If it's working, fantastic, we'll stick to it. If not, I'm going to Homer Simpson him. I'm just going to say, Lucas, look, I'm just going to try and, you know what I'm like, you know what I mean? The game plan is there. The game plan B is punch me in the face and let him punch me in the face, and let's see who's the last one standing. Like I'm Saturday night, I'm willing to, and I can honestly sit here now and say, I'm willing to take whatever. You don't have to render me unconscious to beat me, because if not, I'm not really bothered really what happened. You can punch my face all day if he wants, but I ain't going anywhere unless he knocks me out. He can only beat me if he knocks me out. If I feel his power, it's a bit like, that hurt a little bit, but stick to the game plan. If not, we're going to get at it straight away. So we'll see. I respect him massively. I like him. Saturday night though, it's me or him, and that's how it is, I'm afraid.
So those were comments from both Dave Allen and Lucas Browne from the final press conference. And you can get a real sense from Dave Allen that he is really dialed in for this one. And just to the eye test, he looks like he's in better shape than he was just a few months ago. When he fought Ariel Bracamonte, what was it, in November or December? Actually, I'll just quickly check his box rec here. It was November. He hadn't really trained for that fight. He said he'd done a little bit of work, but it was next to nothing. He went in there expecting to blow him out in a round or two and ended up in a real war. So this was a fight that kind of has woken him up, because after that, you may recall some of the interviews, some of the statements that he was making. It really caused a lot of concern for fans, and he was sort of saying after that fight he was hoping to be on the bill on the 22nd of December, just a month later, even though he had various injuries including perforated eardrums. A lot of people, including myself, were voicing concern for Dave Allen and his well-being, because clearly he wasn't looking after himself. He wasn't training, he wasn't considering his career. It seemed to be just on to the next one, and it didn't really matter about his state of mind or his state of well-being in general. But he seems to have turned a corner. He's taken this one serious, and he's not just training in, sort of backyard style. He's actually gotten serious. He's got Darren Barker enlisted, and clearly from some of the shots that he's been putting out and some of the different video that has emerged from his training camp, he's trimmed down and he's been working on some things. It's not just hit the bag for 12 rounds. He's actually working on a strategy that he wants to implement. But you did hear there from Dave Allen that if the game plan isn't working, he basically wants to try Homer Simpson it. And if you do remember that famous Simpsons episode where Homer Simpson fought Drederick Tatum, Simpson basically just took punch after punch after punch, and eventually he was able to throw something in there. And Dave Allen is kind of, what he's implying there is he's durable, and if he has to resort to a war-style mentality where it is just slugging it out with Allen, he's going to back his chin here, and he believes that he will come through this. And you'd have to say that on that basis, if this fight devolves to punch for punch, maybe he will be able to outlast Lucas Browne, because Lucas Browne is a bit chinny. He's been down a number of times in his career, and as we saw against Dillian Whyte just a year ago, he was brutally knocked out. And since then, Lucas Browne has actually had 3 fights. He hasn't looked necessarily impressive in any of them. The first one was back in September 2018 against 7-foot Julius Long, but he was a guy with a record of 18-20 at the time. He wasn't expected to win. It was effectively a rematch of an earlier fight that they'd had a few years before. Browne had won that one too. Although he knocked Long out in the 3rd round, immediately prior to that knockout, Browne was actually hurt. He was caught by Long and he was in some trouble. But he did manage to just throw some bombs and get Long out of there, sort of had Long sprawled through the ropes. A couple of months later, in November 2018, he fought a New Zealander in New Zealand called Junior Party. Not a great fight. He got the stoppage in the 5th round, an uppercut drops Party, and ultimately he couldn't continue. But there was nothing in that fight or the Long fight where I sort of thought he will be at some sort of elite level again. And then we saw just a month ago, the start of March, in Scotland at the Trump Turnberry, he fought Kamil Sokolowski. Sokolowski was confirmed relatively late in the piece as an opponent, and Sokolowski dropped him in that fight. It was in the 2nd or 3rd round. Here is the footage from the fight. This was broadcast live on Instagram by Wildcard Events, who was hosting the fight at the Trump Turnberry. He was probably lucky to come away with the decision there. It was decision by referee, 57-56 on the cards in a 6-rounder. Did pretty well to get the decision in spite of the knockdown. And it was that fight as well where I think many people who did see that, and it is up on the channel, you can go back and watch that. I'll make that available at the end of this one as a video that you can click to. On the strength of that, it seems that a lot of fan sentiment and also the bookies have sort of turned around on this Dave Allen and Lucas Browne fight, because a lot of support started to pile in behind Dave Allen and his chances of beating Lucas Browne. I've been saying for a while now that I think Lucas Browne is ripe for the picking. That Whyte fight showed us pretty much all we needed to know about where Lucas Browne was really at in his career now. And at 40 years old, not looking good in fights against journeymen, I can't actually see how he's going to take this one. But, the counter argument to that is, well, Dave Allen, he hasn't proven to be any great shakes recently. He's had, in the past year, one good win against Nick Webb, where that was a bit of a surprise to sort of the boxing fandom in general. It was against the run of play. People weren't expecting it. It was an upset. Dave Allen brought in at short notice yet again, which has been a theme through his career, gets a stunning knockout. But I just think if Dave Allen can land some similar type bombs on Lucas Browne's chin, that Browne potentially is going to be out of there. And Dave Allen himself, in the lead up to this fight, and this was on Instagram Live, said he expects he will be stopping Lucas Browne.
Lucas Browne being a bit lighter, for me, will not work in his favour though. He's not a fast man anyway. I think I'll get him out there in 3 or 4 rounds.
Do you think you think you stop him?
I think I'll stop him in 3 or 4 rounds. I think I'll stop him early on. I know I do. And this is not even false confidence. I've never been confident before. I always say, even doing 6 rounds against Dave, I always say, I'm not sure, maybe I'll do this. I will not Lucas Browne out in 3 or 4 rounds. I know that's a fact.
But I guess part of this fight, it does come down to what sort of version of Dave Allen does come into the ring, because he has been a bit of an enigma. He's looked good at different times. He's been dedicated for spots in his career. You know, the Lenroy Thomas rematch, for example, whipped himself into great shape, and ultimately that ended on cuts. And then, you know, there's been other times where he's just taken fights on a week or 2 weeks' notice and hasn't trained, and then he's looked completely dreadful. So it's hard to know what we're going to get with Dave Allen because of, you know, some of what's been going on in his career. Admittedly, he's, you know, suffers depressive episodes. He's also had issues with gambling. He's had other issues that he's talked about very publicly, but he's been trying to keep a lid on those, manage and control those. And I do like, for him at least, how he's had more structure in this camp with Darren Barker. He's had more guidance, and he does seem to be dialed in to actually fire on all cylinders against Lucas Browne. And when this fight was made, I thought if Dave Allen can actually come in, he's dedicated in his training, he shows up in the right mental state of mind, he should have this one. But, you know, Lucas Browne does have heavy hands, so if he comes through this, if he's able to stop Dave Allen, or whatever happens, he gets a victory, a decision of some sort, this is a 12-round fight, that would be very surprising to me. But obviously it would prove that Lucas Browne is actually at a certain level still, and he would be in the mix for some of these fights that have been talked about, like David Price, for example. Price wants to face Lucas Browne. He probably fancies his chances of knocking the Australian out. But those sorts of fights, that's the level that I think he's at the moment. And it was quite interesting because Eddie Hearn revealed at that final press conference that Lucas Browne's name was in the running potentially as a name that was mentioned for Alexander Usyk. And I think many would agree that Usyk versus Browne would probably be a bit of a mismatch. Usyk would dance rings around Browne and probably make him look a bit silly. But it was interesting to know that that name had been thrown out as someone they were considering. But obviously it wasn't public until now, and they had moved on from that opportunity, or that potential opportunity, to face Carlos Takam, who's got more name recognition and his stock is much higher than Browne's in the division. But if Lucas Browne loses, where does he go? I would say retirement, but maybe he does need the money. And sometimes these guys do stay on for longer than they should because they need the money. And Lucas Browne has spoken about wanting to be in significant fights that earn good money. He says he hasn't made great money from boxing. You know, it's been okay, but it's not like he's been rich. He's been very public about that in the past year or two, because people often say, you know, think that he's made millions and millions of dollars. But from what he's saying, you know, he's done okay, enough to buy a house and all that sort of stuff, and provide for his family, but he's looking to do more. I kind of wonder if this rebuild, you know, what's happened in the past year since he's lost Dillian White, if it is window dressing to some extent, because it feels like it's been building to an occasion like this, where he's been trying to do everything that he can publicly, you know, from his social media accounts, and he's been losing weight, getting into better condition. But all of that just may not be enough. I actually think that he's shot to pieces, and if he does win, it will really surprise me. But, you know, it is heavyweight boxing, and he's facing Dave Allen. Let's face it, Allen is an enigma, so who knows what could happen. But I am expecting Dave Allen to come out with the win here, and by knockout, maybe within the first half a dozen rounds or so. How about you? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.